John Height.
Right, here's the interview for
Brian Birmingham here to talk about Burning Crusade Classic, which was announced yesterday. Yeah, hi guys, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
And I just want to start by saying thank you. I was so happy.
Now, I want to say he hasn't uploaded his video to YouTube yet. MrGM, I've been waiting for hours. He said it would be up right afterwards. I've been waiting hours. He hasn't uploaded it to YouTube, so I'm recording my reaction to the video. I am not going to upload this until he's obviously uploaded his video. Can I turn up the volume? Their volume? Yeah. One sec. See if you can hear this better.
Happy to see it. I love Classic, and Burning Crusade is just... That was, I don't know, something about Burning Crusade, like how exciting it was as like the first expansion of World of Warcraft is just such
I will be pausing
amazing
it from
experience.
time to talk. So.
And I'm looking forward to diving back in for sure.
I totally agree with you. I feel like it's one of those things where you've just had so much fun in World of Warcraft, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, there's going to be all kinds of new stuff to do. Like, I get to do, like, take my character who
I also got the opportunity to meet Brian Birmingham at the last BlizzCon. He's an extreme. Sat and talked to him for about an hour with Lazanta and a couple of other people, and he's a super nice guy. Super nice guy. Chatted with him about, and one of the topics that we brought up. This is obviously after they'd announced Classic. Actually, it was after Classic had launched. One of the topics that was brought up is how we would like to see Classic transition into TBC. We actually spoke with that with Brian, and he was really interested to hear our input from that. And I told him at the time I wanted fresh servers starting at level 1, and he was like, really, that's really interesting. And anyways,
I've been working on and improving and do all kinds of new
super nice guy though
them in this otherworldly, like, floating islands in space kind of place. So it's really cool to go to someplace that's just so, like, visually distinctive and has so many cool memories for all of us.
Yeah, all the visual, you know, each zone is so different from one another. You know, starting off with Hellfire and, you know, the crazy battles that'll happen underfoot of the Fell Reavers, branching your way into the, you know, wild giant mushrooms and marsh of Zengar Marsh.
Yeah, I think that's.
I mean, and I agree with you, Brian. I mean, the really crazy, you know, nether storm and the glass domes containing all that lush foliage. It looks like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Oh, I know, and I know one of your favorites is like the Sporgar, and underneath the giant mushrooms of Zengar Marsh is also really cool.
Got to get rid.
See, now they know that he's got a limited amount of time with him, and yet they're rambling on. Like, I feel bad for MrGM because you guys will see at the end he kind of ran out of time.
With the little Sporgar, you know,
yeah.
Have your little mushroom pet. They're super important.
Yeah, it's so funny. John and I have done so many of these. We're now talking about each other's favorite things.
Love it. You just already know the answers. I guess talking about like the development of Burning Crusade and things like that. One thing that was kind of thrown around in the community for a long time was the idea of Classic Plus. So I guess my first question would be, obviously, you know, you did decide on doing Burning Crusade, but was the idea of Classic Plus ever thrown about in like a serious regard, or is that something you've ever considered, or how?
I mean, you know, we've heard that off and on from the community. You know, honestly, the loudest cry was for Burning Crusade. We started hearing that as soon as we announced Classic. So, you know, we're going to keep listening.
Classic Plus is called the Burning Crusade.
Extremely grateful and excited about this side.
For those of you that wanted additional content for Classic Plus, it's called the Burning Crusade.
The Classic community. I mean, we had no idea that it was going to be this big and that people were going to be as dedicated as they are. And to this day, you know, there's still a lot of people in there, you know, happy with the number of people who've run through Naxxramas and, you know, hit level 60 and we feel like it's, you know, they told us the majority told us that they really wanted to go to Burning Crusade, and that's why that's the default option. But, you know, let's see what happens. First, let's get Burning Crusade out.
Yeah.
Let's see where people want to go next.
Yeah, I think
exactly.
I think Burning Crusade's dope. You know, it's just natural progression, really. A lot of people like that expansion. Like, as soon as you guys announced it, just Twitter just blew up. Everyone's like, yes, finally, you know. It's so so near and dear to everyone, I think.
Yeah, we don't want to rule anything out, but this one seemed like if we didn't do this, there would be so many people disappointed. This was such an expectation for people like who have been preparing for. Honestly, like there's been people who, even though we haven't announced it, we're just assuming, right? Like, of course we're going to go to Burning Crusade. They've been preparing for this, you know. Like it's a kind of a joke in the, you know, one of the most famous lines in Warcraft cinematic history, right? You are not prepared, and they're like, well, this time we're prepared. So they've been preparing since we launched Classic, just hoping that we would make this announcement. So we're really glad to be able to give them what they've been asking for.
It is interesting, actually, yeah, just like a lot of Classic people, like, since the start have been like, right, I'm going to need this in Burning Crusade. Like, there's literally no announcement. They're like, I know. So, with the development of Classic, obviously it was based off of the 1.12 data, like the class changes and everything like that, right? So, with Burning Crusade, I feel... You know, I'm assuming, I don't know, like, is it going to be based off of 2.4, or is it going to be progressively kind of developing from, like, you know, 2.0 to 2.1 or whatever, with, like, the base of it?
The first one you said, we're going to start with the latest patch, 2.43, I believe, was the last patch of Burning Crusade. And so we're going to start with that one and use that as our baseline. That's because we really want to do is start with a set of changes that we felt like the designers at the time felt were reasonably balanced. That was like the best iteration of the Burning Crusade systems that we have, much like 1.12 was the best iteration of the classic systems that we have. There was a little bit of a miscommunication around like whether or not we could have gone to earlier patches of classic, and we could have. We do have some of that old data as well for earlier patches. Some of the very, very earliest was overwritten, but most of them were actually still around. And so we were actually able to like pull from those things to do some of the things that we did unlock progressively over time, like the various itemization changes of like where things dropped in the world in Classic. And we're going to do the same kind of thing with 2.43, where that's our starting point, but we do have the earlier patches to draw from for things that we want to make unlock progressively over time. And the big change there for Burning Crusade is that the thing that they changed progressively over time a lot was actually raid difficulty. Was they would have a raid that came out with a really hard state because they were kind of following on that increasingly difficult trajectory from Naxxramas in Classic and going into even harder and harder content. And then as they saw that people were struggling with it, they would progressively nerf it over time so you could get through the early stuff and into the later stuff. But we want to give players another chance to experience those really hard first passes of things. And so we're going to launch things initially in a kind of pre-nerf state. And then as things unlock over time, we'll also unlock the progressive nerfs to things.
How do you think that's going to go? Do you think they're going to get it down?
Oh, absolutely. I think our players are just so skilled and experienced these days. Like we could see this in the modern WoW team. They design these really complicated and difficult mechanics, and then people are still able to chew through them relatively quickly. And so I think it would be foolish of us to expect that anybody would really like struggle with things that are known mechanics that people have been practicing for years. Like you can still see and experience those with in modern WoW. You could solo many of these dungeons and see what the mechanics are. So people know what they are and they can prepare for them. And it really is a matter of being prepared for things makes such a difference in whether or not you go in. This is why it's a learning curve when you do new raids in World of Warcraft, is that you go in there and when you start out, it's not just the gear that you get in there that drops and makes your character more powerful. It's the player's knowledge and experience that makes them able to defeat raids faster and faster over time. And so when they go back to a raid that they did 15 years ago, of course they're going to start with an advantage. Of course they're going to crush it. And we're excited to see that, and also excited to see them bring their friends along and teach their friends who maybe didn't get a chance to experience it the first time. Hey, here's this cool boss. It's really fun. Like, let's learn this mechanics together. I can teach you. I can help you learn it.
Yeah, I think that's what's so good about Classic, just being able to go back and actually experience it like that. So obviously, as you said, it's based off the 2.4.3. I guess specific things from that patch. One comes to mind is mounting at level 30 was introduced in 2.4.3. Would that be something?
You know, that's a good point. I actually couldn't remember if we had done that specific change. I think it probably, since we did start with the 2.43 data, that's probably what it says right now. I haven't actually looked to see if that's in there. But in general, we did make a number of improvements to speed up the leveling process throughout Burning Crusade, and we do intend to launch those. So it seems to me like that would be consistent with that. If 2.43 is the one that introduced mounting at level 30, we should probably have that for Burning Crusade as well. Like there were other like experience curves were adjusted in I think patch 2.3, and we want to have the later versions of those.
I believe
so if you're trying to, like,
mount
level up
costs
in Burning Crusade,
were cheaper too,
it is
actually.
tuned to catch you up to Burning Crusade. And that's kind of consistent with our philosophy. If you want to see that old original level up curve, we still have that in Classic Era. You can still choose to level there if you want to and experience the zones at that pacing. And I mean, like, personally, I really love that. But if you're trying to play Burning Crusade, you probably want to catch up to players who are playing Burning Crusade. So
Yeah.
you want to have offerings that help you do that.
Yeah, I mean, like the only changes really to the classic leveling was obviously the speed in Burning Crusade, and I think there's Swamp of Sorrows. There was a Draenei randomly thrown in there somewhere. I think that was pretty much all there was there. Another thing, I guess, from 2.4.3 is attunements, raid attunements. Is that still going to be... Because I believe they were either removed or changed in 2.4.3?
That's a really good call out, actually, because those are another things we want to kind of bring back the kind of pre-nerf state of.
Yes.
Is the raid attunements, and make sure that people do have to do those raid attunements, at least for the tier that is active, like, or is top of the tier right now. So what we're kind of thinking right now is, as an example, the Karazhan quest chain to get attuned to Karazhan was this elaborate quest chain that sent you all around the world through all kinds of heroic dungeons, trying to like free prisoners from Alcatraz and go back in time in Black Morass, and even like meet Medivh. And that's a really cool story element we kind of want to bring back as part of getting into Karazhan. And so we are going to bring that back as a requirement for everybody to go to Karazhan when Karazhan first comes out at launch. But later, as we release the other tiers, it'll make a little more sense to say, like, okay, well, you could zone into Karazhan as long as somebody has the key to unlock the gate, right? And then maybe the attunement part of it is gone, but there's still, like, the gate is closed, and as long as someone in your raid has the key, or honestly, just a passerby, you can get the gate open, run through the portal. And then similarly with the other tier attunements, we want to bring back some level of, hey, you can attune for it as the tier is active and get through. I think though there were like the very first version of attunements, some of them were particularly challenging in terms of like
those of you that haven't played
punishing isn't
TBC,
the right
they,
word, because
there's
like
lots of
only
attunements
one
you have
person
to
from
go
your
through.
raid
So
will get attuned. And I was like, well, that doesn't seem quite right. We've kind of feels like everybody could get attuned together, and so we'll probably do it more like that, which is like with that part of it was changed pretty quickly, and we'll make sure that the attunements are definitely part of there. Like, there are charts on the internet, they're great, like flow charts showing this is the attunement chain for Burning Crusade, and so we definitely wouldn't want to take that away. It's definitely part of the nostalgia, part of the memory of what Burning Crusade was to have those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Carry keys around again.
We do have the key ring though. We were pressured to adding that in Classic. It was
a huge quality of life improvement was the key ring.
That's true. I think it actually officially launched in 1.11, and so people were really pressuring us for Classic, like, you got to put that back in. And initially we launched without it, but we did put it back in since it was consistent with our philosophy.
My classic character thanks you. I've got my key to Searing Gorge, and I'm keeping it forever.
Absolutely.
So you announced that obviously TBC is going to be, you're not going to buy TBC, right? You're not going to repurchase Burning Crusade. It's going to be included in the sub. So
That's
one thing I was curious about is collector's editions, right? It was one of the, like, you know, you got obviously the pet, I think it was a Netherwing at the time or something like that. If I remember back. Yeah, the original collector's edition, yeah. I know in Classic, if you had the collector's edition, you could still get the, was it Diablo pet and some other stuff, I think it is.
Yeah, Diablo, a Zergling, or a Panda. You actually got a choice for one per character can get one of those.
Yeah. Is that something you're probably going to bring back in, I suppose?
That's certainly the intent. I know, like, one of the tricks is like the way we store some of those licenses has changed over time, and so it was a challenge to even like do the thing for the original Classic Edition. But it is something we feel like is important to honor. If you got the Collector's Edition at the time, we want to make it possible for you to get the Collector's Edition award that you got at the time. And so we're going to do some effort to try to see if we can detect that same license the way it used to be recorded on your account. And if we can detect that you originally bought the Burning Crusade Collector's Edition, then we'll try to give you the original Burning Crusade.
I have all the Collector's Editions. I didn't buy it though.
Delivery method a little bit. It's like we want to try to make sure that.
Do any of you have the original Collector's Edition?
Not the best way to do it, and that's
Burning
how we delivered it
Crusade,
back at the time.
The
original Classic one, where, like, starts in your character's inventory, works just fine. Like you make a new character.
I've got two of them. Like,
that one's great. Delivering it by the mail has
two classic ones.
with it, so we'll probably do a different distribution method.
Yeah, we have a new license system which we would adopt, but I think if I understand your full question, I think what Brian's talking about is a desire to potentially honor the people that originally got that.
Yes,
in terms of, would we bring back that exact collector's edition? We're still TBD on what some of the offerings will be for Burning Crusade. But as you pointed out, yeah, you'll be able to, with your base subscription, you'll have access now to 3 games: Modern WoW, Burning Crusade, and WoW Classic.
I guess to kind of bounce off of that, you don't have to answer this, but there was 2 encrypted Phoenix mounts in the patch 9.0.5 data. and I was very curious about that, if they're involved in Burning Crusade.
Did you say encrypted Phoenix what's?
Mounts. There was 2 encrypted Phoenix mounts, the Sapphire, I don't know what it's called, and the Fireplume Phoenix. I was curious if they were Burning Crusade.
Not classic.
Well, maybe I'm answering by saying I don't know actually anything about this. So I'm unaware. Maybe John knows more than I do, but I'm unaware of what those are or what they're for.
Again, we haven't talked about what future unlocks might look like. Data mining is always a perilous endeavor. Just because something might be out there, you think something's out there, doesn't mean you'll ever really see it.
Yeah, I guess that's how it is. So, technical question. I love finding out how, like, one of my favorite panels from, I think it was last BlizzCon, was the one where you spoke about how, how Classic was made, right? So it was based off of the Battle for Azeroth client, right? It was the 1.12 day, you kind of merged it.
You gave up trying any new ones after Guild Wars 2? Why you didn't like
and with
Guild
that,
Wars
you obviously
2?
had residual things like new shadows
Guild Wars 2
and
was
new water
awesome.
and things like that came along with it. So here's one for you, which is, will it be based off the Shadowlands client, and will it have ray tracing shadows?
Oh, that is a really good question. I can't speak specifically to ray tracing shadows, but in general, yes, we will have it based off the Shadowlands client. That's at least the intention right now.
Yep.
We're working really hard to do that. That's one of the things that is a challenge, is trying to merge in all of our latest changes. We actually, believe it or not, shipped off of the... Oh, no, I'm sorry. You said Battle for Azeroth. That's correct. Yeah, it was. Yeah. We originally had, I think, the Legion 735 for our BlizzCon demo. So a lot of people thought that that was what we shipped on, but we did actually upgrade to the 801 code for like the baseline underlying infrastructure. So it's actually been a challenge from an engineering level to figure out like where those lines are that divide between a system that is like fundamental to like how the game runs and operates at like a, hey, this is what works on the hardware, this is what can ship in our cloud infrastructure, right? And balance that against like, well, this is the part that defines the gameplay systems, and that should be different, right? And so we want to be able to upgrade all those systems that that support like modern hardware and make sure that those things are all up to date, while also differentiating the two gameplay systems, so that there's a place where we can say like, oh, this implementation of like the combat formula is done in code, and we have to have different code for combat formulas in Classic than we do in Modern WoW, or now in Burning Crusade. There's changes there too.
Awesome, thank you for answering that. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So with the Classic era realms, obviously they're going to be in Phase 6, right? They're going to be the Shadow of the Necropolis patch. Is there any possible future for fresh Classic realms starting at Phase 1?
Thank God he asked this question.
Possibility?
We don't want to start off, I think it's important that as we move people to Burning Crusade and some people decide that they want to stay with Classic, we let that settle down. I think the right timing, if we do a fresh start realm, will be, after that point. Because effectively, Burning Crusade is going to be new for everyone. And yes, there'll be some people moving their, level 60 character in. But we want to make sure that those communities on the onset are vibrant. There's a lot of people to play with. You don't have a hard time getting a group together. And then as time goes on and more people have come in and more people, have gone through the content or reached max level, then we'd consider opening up fresh starts.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like,
of course, if demand is as crazy as it was at Classic, we might be compelled to open
So
up.
hold on,
new
let me
realms.
go back.
I mean, since you mentioned about like possibility,
we don't want to start off. I think it's important that as we move people to Burning Crusade and some people decide that they want to stay with Classic, we let that settle down. I think the right timing, if we do a fresh start realm, will be after that point. Because effectively, Burning Crusade is going to be new for everyone, and yes, there'll be some people moving their level 60 character in, but we want to make sure that those communities on the onset are vibrant. There's a lot of people.
This is
to
what
play
we were
with.
talking about earlier before we
Don't
started
have a
watching
hard
the
time
video,
getting
guys.
a group together. And then as time goes on and more people have come in and more people have gone through the content or reached max level, then we'd consider opening up fresh starts.
There we go.
I mean, like,
Of course, if the demand is as crazy as it was at Classic, we might be compelled to open up new realms.
Yeah, I mean, since you mentioned about like technical challenges too, like that is an additional technical challenge. Of course, it's like we have the ability to turn the content on and off in Classic, but like scheduling and making sure that that's automatic and not something that requires like a deploy schedule and calling people in to do that work is additional work to integrate from our modern code base. And so that's the kind of stuff that it may seem like it's trivial, but there's actually a lot of work.
We might be compelled to open up new realms.
Yeah, and I mean, since you mentioned about like technical challenges too, like that is an additional technical challenge, of course. It's like, we have the ability to turn the content on and off in Classic, but like scheduling and making sure that that's automatic and not something that requires like a deploy schedule and calling people in to do that work is additional work to integrate from our modern code base. And so that's the kind of stuff.
I just don't I'm not a code. Space Traveler Gaming. Thanks for the raid, dude. I appreciate it. We're just sitting here watching MrGM's video on that he did with John Haidt and Brian Birmingham. Welcome everyone to the stream. I appreciate the raid, man. As far as like, is anyone here like good at coding or programming or anything like that? Like, I don't understand what is so difficult about wiping the data from a server, like characters, stuff off the auction house, like all that sort of shit. Or in fact, are you still running on your priest? I am, yes. I might be doing some of that later on tonight, but right now we're just watching the interview that MrGM had with with John Haidt and Brian Birmingham. Gives a lot of data on TBC, so that's what we're doing for the next little bit. And then we'll be going over all this information. But I don't understand. They've got to have like just a copy of a fresh server, right? Like, does that not make sense that they just have a copy of a fresh server and all they would have to do is actually like set up the server, put on the software, and away it goes? Like, is there something that I'm missing that's just not completely obvious? It's got to be harder than that. I understand that. Sure, what we were thinking, as simple as it's. I don't. What is the difficult part though? A lot of spaghetti code embedded between old TBC and new Classic. No, but I'm talking about if you wanted to start up a fresh Classic server, an absolutely fresh Classic server. First of all, they've probably got a digital like copy of it somewhere, right? Like this is our digital copy of a fresh server. Here it is. Why would it be so hard for them to actually set up a server from that point? It's not like I'm asking them to wipe all the data off of a current server. I'm just saying they've got to have a copy of what a fresh server is, right? And maybe I don't understand the cost, but I mean, you had people running private servers out of a freaking closet in Russia. Like, what is the actual cost of running a server? Does anyone here actually work in the gaming industry and understand what the cost of actually setting up a server like this would be? Silence Pizza, it's not, they don't, that's what I think too. They just don't want it to compete with TBC. They don't want to split all the population. You'd have, if a huge chunk of the population went to go play Fresh instead, you'd have healthy populated servers now that would suddenly be poorly populated servers going into TBC. And you'd have a lot of people that are playing on poorly populated servers now that would be playing on servers that are completely dead if they started it. We all understand that. That's why I'm telling people there's no way that you're going to see fresh Classic servers for at least a year, or fresh TBC for that matter. You just won't see it. So they'll wait till the hype dies down, and then they'll drop Classic, yeah. But what they're talking about here, like they're trying to make it sound like it's so super ultra technical, and I've never set up a server, but it doesn't seem like it should really be that difficult. Like, I honestly think that they could probably do it in a matter of, I don't know. I'm guessing a week, like maybe at most.
Stuff that, it may seem like it's trivial, but there's actually a lot of work that goes behind doing these things. And so that's why our focus right now is on Burning Crusade.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess sticking with the Classic era realms. So I guess, is it going to, so my example that I gave on my question is, so say for example, there's Pagel right now, Pagel NA.
Sure.
That's going to progress into Pagel TBC, right? That's going to be Burning Crusade. Will
Okay, so I think we're going to see Classic die, and a lot of people who are... I agree. I don't think there's going to be enough people that are going to switch their characters to the permanent Classic realms. Like, the overwhelming majority of people... There's a lot of people that I've talked to that said that they are actually going to clone their characters, but how many of them are actually going to have people to play with? Like, there was somebody that I was talking to earlier who said that he's got, like, a few characters that he's going to clone, but he doesn't have a raid to keep raiding with. I guess there's other people on the server, but how many people are actually going to be left behind? Frankie Jankel, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. How many people are actually going to stick behind on those servers? And I'm talking about like Ferlina, which is a very populated server that we're on. Like, they're going to be very poorly populated, these whatever classic era servers. And imagine the people that are playing on what are now poorly populated servers, then going to their version of a classic era server. There's going to be like nobody playing there. Like, nobody's going to be playing on that server. They're going to end up having to transfer those characters off to a more populated classic era server if they're even able to. It's expensive to roll out and maintain servers that can service millions of players. They're talking about using cross-realm. They talked about using cross-realm like in retail. Oh, for the classic era ones? Okay, we'll keep watching then. The paid copy service is a joke. I refuse to participate in it. It should be a free, and because it isn't, I just won't play classic. I've already leveled to 60. Condense the classic servers to just a few. They are going to condense the classic servers to just a few. No, Money Q. They haven't said anything, I don't believe, about condensing the classic servers to just a few. In fact, they talked about how they weren't going to do it. They might merge them because they already said name conflicts won't be a problem. No, they said name conflicts won't be a problem because your server will have an exact copy of it on the classic era server. So if you play on Ferlina now, and then they have a classic era server, that classic era server will be all the people from Ferlina that have copied their character to the classic era Ferlina server. So it's not going to be a bunch of people from like Herod and Heartseeker and a bunch of other servers that are all playing on the same server. You're going to literally have a classic era version of the server that you're currently playing on. That's why I'm saying if you're not playing on a really heavily populated server right now, your classic era version of your server is going to be dead. It's going to be hard to be anyone there. So if you're playing, I'll give Heartseeker as an example because it's the one that I'm most familiar with for low pop servers. If you're playing on Horde on Heartseeker, and right now there is one guild on the Horde side of Heartseeker that still raids, and a bunch of the old tyrants that we played with, they're raiding with them currently. If they only have a small portion of those people that stay on the clone version of the game the classic era version of Heartseeker, there's no one else that's there to raid with them. Like their version of the server will have nobody there. You even take a look at like really busy servers like Ferlina, where there's like I don't know, there's say I think it's like 5,500 or something like that people that are actively raiding on Ferlina, and it's like 43%. It's like 43% that are Horde. So let's say there's 2,000 players that are actively raiding on the Horde side. I don't even think it's that much. I think that's actually a little high. But let's say it's 2,000, and then you only have, say, 80% or whatever, 90% that are going to continue on to TBC, and only like, say, 10% of people are going to be cloning their character to play on the classic era server. You're going to be left with like just a couple of hundred people that are actually playing on these classic era servers. Like, they're going to be really, really dead population-wise. It's going to be hard for people to actually continue on playing on these servers. So maybe I'm just over-exaggerating how few people are going to be playing on these classic era servers. I don't think there's going to be that many people. Like, I honestly don't think that many people are going to be like, yeah, you know what, I might copy one, and I don't even know why I would. I don't even know why I would. Like, I love Classic. I might just because I love Classic. But I don't actually think I'd have anyone to play with. To be honest, I just don't. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to wait till closer until the date to see how much of a buzz there is for people that are wanting to actually sit there and play on the Classic era servers. But I just feel like the massive percentage of the population, the massive majority of the population is going to move on to TBC, and a lot of these people playing on Classic era are not going to have anyone. It's kind of the same thing for those of you that didn't play in vanilla when it went into TBC, there was the same sort of uproar. Like there was a lot of people that like, I don't want to have to pay for an expansion. I want to play classic, blah, blah, blah. And they came out and said, listen, you don't have to buy the expansion. You can leave your character at level 60 and you can, form guilds that are just playing classic, blah, blah, blah. Nobody ever did. Like I don't think I heard of any guilds that were like, yeah, we're just going to stay in classic, and it just didn't work. And I just really doubt that it costs $120,000 to $150,000 a day to run a single WoW server. That is not correct. There's no chance it costs that much, dude. Come on. I would seriously doubt that. Are they going to condense? We already went over that. Merge? No. You get to classic character name? No. We went over that. That's why they don't have to worry about the names, because your name is going to be saved to the other side as well. I believe. Now, what I'm curious about is if you don't transfer your character to the classic era server, can somebody else then steal it? Probably. That's something I don't know if that's been confirmed. But you would probably later on, once the server starts, if that person with your name, like if I didn't transfer my Alodar character to the classic era server, somebody could probably take my name. I think even if you're playing a heavily popular server, it will still be dead. I agree, SureShot. Unless it's a fresh server, it's going to be dead. And because I can't freely copy my character, it's another barrier. Exactly. It's not free. Like, I don't know. I don't know that I agree with them charging you to do this. I think classic private servers are going to become more popular because of how they are handling this. Hey, I played private servers. I could totally see there being kind of a emergence of private servers because people want to play fresh classic. You think the people that are running these private servers, Elysium, Lights Hope, they might not see this as an opportunity to start up a private server? I believe one of them has actually already announced that they are starting one up, so I would not be shocked at all if they started up a private server, a fresh private server. In fact, I would almost guarantee it. People like change. After 2 to 3 years, people aren't going to be ready. Are going to be ready for Wrath of Lich King. Here's something that I will point back to when they first started talking about like going from Molten Core to BWL. I was one of the people that was like, "This is too soon. Why are they doing this so soon? It's They shouldn't be doing this too soon. They're racing through the content." As it turned out, when we looked at how long between it was in Classic as compared to original Vanilla, it actually wasn't that much of a difference. And then they went from one phase to the next. And every phase, I think there was a lot of us that were going, "No, this is too fast. Why are you guys rushing through this?" Blah, blah, blah type of thing, right? And then Nax came out. And now that people have rated Nax for, I don't know what week we're on. Has it been 2 months now, roughly? 2 months? Jerry? Or has it been 3 months? 2.5 months? Something like that, right? I think now, like, people are ready. I was one of the people that was like, I want to keep playing Classic. And I do. I want to keep playing Classic. If there was a fresh Classic server launch tomorrow, I'd be on it. I'd be all over that. But I think people, for this phase of the game, they're ready to move on. I think most people are done. They're getting a little tired of even rating Nax. Nax is a real drain on your resources. And a lot of players are just ready to move on. So I think either Fresh would be popular or TBC, but I don't see these Classic era versions of the servers being that popular at all. Blizzard just don't like pissing people off, so they tried to adhere to everyone. Well, they didn't, though. They didn't give us fresh servers. And I guarantee you more people want fresh servers than Classic era servers. More people would rather play fresh Classic servers than continue on playing Phase 6 Classic. I would bet my house that I do not own on it. I would be all over fresh Classic until TBC. Yeah. Now we did see in the video they're not going to launch fresh Classic. We talked about this a couple days ago. One of the things that we talked about, or when we were doing the show yesterday, one of the things we talked about is when they could possibly launch Fresh. And we just don't see them launching Fresh. Like, we don't see them launching TBC. I don't think TBC is going to be out for another 6 months. Like, honestly, I see TBC out coming around, say, around June or July-ish type of thing. That's when I think TBC is actually going to be launched. You're probably not going to see beta for another month or two. And then you'll probably have a month of beta, and then it'll be like another 5-6 months until TBC is launched. You will not see a Fresh server for at least 6 months after that. That means it will be at least another year before we see Fresh anything, Fresh Classic or Fresh TBC. So that's what we should look for. And not to bring up private servers, but they're going to be thinking the same thing. So it's stubbornness out of anything. It's a thorn in Blizzard's side that the community likes vanilla more than any other version of the game. I mean, their most popular version of the game was Wrathful Lich King, right? But I think that was just because a lot of the people just hadn't really started to play the game. They'd heard about it, but they hadn't given it a shot yet. My favorite. Hold on, I'm gonna sneeze. We'll edit that out. My favorite version of the game is Classic. TBC would be a close second, but my favorite version of the game is Classic. If they came out with Fresh TBC the same day as Fresh, or if they came out with TBC at the same day as they came out with Fresh Classic, I'd have a tough decision to make. I would be trying to play both, though. Fresh and Classic Plus is the future. Maybe not new content, but modifiers, permadeath. They will never have permadeath, dude. Permadeath is a very niche market. By the way, not to promote myself, but if you type exclamation YouTube, you can see my last video on Classic Plus servers. I did have some ideas as to what Classic Plus could look like, but it did not have new content. It was just mainly things to make it a little bit more challenging. They don't want to take attention away from TBC. That's correct. Wrathful Lich King was most popular because TBC was the best and it grew the most during that era. I think, whether TBC was the best is subjective, right? Some people think BFA is the best version of the game. So that's very subjective. I don't agree that TBC was the best. It was very good, but I don't agree that it was the best. I think it was second best in my eyes. My biggest gripe with all the expansions is that all the previous eras become obsolete, so the world became much smaller after vanilla. Great. Okay, we're going to continue on with this video, but...
Will there be a Pagel that's staying in Classic? Will there be a literal clone of that realm, or will there be like a whole new list of new Classic era realms?
It should feel like it's the same realm. Like in actual practice, like the hardware that it's running on, the database that's supporting it is actually becoming the Burning Crusade one.
Right.
But then we will stand up a new Pagel on the new Classic era realms, and so you'll find it under Pagel in your character list. We want that because we don't want.
I want to make a point though. Remember we talked. Somebody brought up costs of the servers. They're able to clone all these servers and basically use them as completely new servers. So if there's 40 Classic World of Warcraft servers, they're putting up 40 new Classic era servers. So don't tell me that starting up one class or a few Classic Fresh servers costs too much. Okay, they're literally putting up 40 more versions of these servers like that. So putting up some Classic Fresh servers, the cost is not an issue. There'd be a lot more people playing the Classic Fresh as well. So.
Want you to feel like you're lost looking for your character. If you say I want to clone my character on Pagel into Classic Era, or even just play it there only, right? I only want to play it there. We want you to be able to find that by just launching the Classic Era client in Battle.net and selecting Pagel from the realm list and finding your characters right there where you left them. That said, we might have most of the population moving to Burning Crusade, and we may need to do something to solve the population combinations. But we have technologies that we've used in the past for managing that, and we can always try to look to those if we need those.
Awesome, thank you. So I asked the community about what the Classic community, what they were most curious about, and the number one thing was leatherworking drums. That
Oh yeah. We haven't called that one out specifically, but it's definitely on our radar. I know, like, we have certainly been listening to the community complaining about this, or worrying about this, I guess I should really say, leading up to the Burning Crusade announcement. As everybody assumed we would probably do this, they've been saying, like, but you've got to do something about those drums. And we looked into it, and yeah, we definitely want to make some change there.
Yeah.
We want to adjust them in some way so it doesn't feel like everybody who wants to be like maximally, optimize their output has to go leatherworking. That feels bad when like it basically gets down to like it's a party-wide buff. It lasts for enough time with a cooldown of enough time with no like shared cooldown or debuff that you could have. I think it's either 4 or even all 5 members of your party like doing a rotation of drums,
Yeah.
so that everybody has to
I
have
hope
leatherworking
that- I
to do that.
honestly
It's like,
hope they
okay,
nerf
well
it.
that's ridiculous. So we're going to do some kind of minor adjustment there to make it so that it doesn't feel compulsory for literally everyone to do it. That said,
I hope
like,
they nerf it.
It's a similar.
I hope they nerf it because then it makes the raids harder. That's one reason right there. And it also gives players the option to have a little bit more variety with their classes as well. But I hope they nerf it, to be honest.
Thing where engineering is a really powerful profession in Classic, and we do want to kind of leave that as a powerful profession that has a great advantage, and so we are going to leave leatherworking drums in the game with probably a slight change to make it so that you want to bring leatherworkers and you want to bring more than one of them, but maybe you don't need to bring 25 of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that kind of comes under the some changes, right? So obviously you guys
Right.
did say about like some changes that you're willing to do. I mean, how far does that go? Like, do we? I don't know. Like, I know some people who come from retail to classic. They're like,
Wasn't there was a debuff that came in Wrath of the Lich King that didn't it nerf the drums in early Wrath? Where it gave you a cooldown on how often you could use it. What was it called? Sated? Jay Ziggy's, thanks for the follow, man. I appreciate that. Is that there was a nerf, right? Like, no, it's not Bloodlust. I thought for some reason that they nerfed it in like late BC or early Wrathful Lich King. The Sated debuff. I'm not talking out of my ass here, right? There. Hold on. Let me just Google this. One second here. Hold on. It was. What you're saying? It was sated? Is that what it was called? Tinnitus? That's what I think. That's it. Tinnitus. Is that spelled right? Tinnitus. Why is it not coming up? Drums debuff. Like, what would I look under? Like, but there was a debuff, right? You said it was for 2 minutes. Oh, Felon, thank God, man. Thank God you're here. Hold on, this is it here. Tinnitus, this is it, yeah. So how long? It lasted for 2 minutes, so you could play drums. How long does the drums buff work? Like, the idea is you're basically one person is casting it one after another on your party, right? That's how it worked. And then by the time the fifth person in your party used his, the person that was number one in the party could use theirs again. That's how it worked, right?
For the Horde!
I also last
Mars.
for 2 minutes.
You don't last that long, dude. You don't last that long. Thanks, Mars. I appreciate it, man. So it lasts 30 seconds. Wait, what? How long does the drums buff last? 30 seconds, right? and then you're rotating it through the people in the party. That's how it worked. And then this debuff came in. When did this come in? I'm wanting to say this came in at the beginning of Wrath, but hold on. Does it say anywhere here? Wrath pre-patch. Okay, so end of TBC. So that's maybe what they might think about doing to nerf drums. Maybe. I think it would be a good idea if they did, because for two reasons. One, it would make the raids actually harder, right? So it would make things a little bit more competitive. And number two, then it would give people the option to play something other than drums, or other than leatherworking, right? So I think it would be a good idea for them to bring that in early.
Like, oh, can you add the dungeon finder and things like that? Like, I'm assuming that's something that, obviously there was a dungeon finder in Burning Crusade, but I mean to the extent of, how it is right now.
The dungeon finder, actually, it was more like a group finder, and honestly, like it was something that like we have struggled with over time, is to try to make that really good. And obviously, like we don't really feel like we
Mars, thanks again, man. Appreciate that.
And so the Burning Crusade version of that, much like the classic version of that, doesn't really feel like it's worth trying to chase. So and honestly, we feel like that actually drove a lot of that social friction that causes you to reach out and find other people. When it's not trivial to find other people, then you actually want to make a relationship with the people you do find. When you're like questing in an area and you see someone nearby, maybe you want to find a way to cooperate with them, like invite them to your party, and now we can share these kills. And it's because it's more difficult, and they're more precious when you find them. So we don't feel like it would be important to include.
Did voice chat come in TBC? Was it that early into the game? I, for some reason, thought it was not till like Mists of the Pandora or something. I am a little bit surprised that voice chat wasn't used more often than it was. Like when they brought it out, I thought, oh wow, this is going to bring like an added amount of sort of like realism or whatever you want, immersion to the game, to have people actually being able to talk to each other when they're standing right next to each other. Sort of like VR or something like that. When it first came out, I thought, "Oh wow, this is going to be really popular in the game," and then like no one uses it. I don't think. Do they still have it in retail? Do they still have voice chat in retail? Let me continue on with this, but
the group finder. Especially not like the dungeon finder with the auto teleport that kind of makes it like auto match made teleport you to the dungeon. We feel like that is
to this stage still nobody uses it,
even though it's really cool to have that option in modern WoW where you can like do that to make sure you can squeeze in the dungeon over lunch. That's kind of awesome. So we want to make sure that there's a distinction between those offerings where if you want that social friction, you can find that in Classic. So we definitely want to keep like the broad, authentic character of Classic while still making targeted fixes for things that are real problems.
Yeah. So it's like kind of just like tweaks, I guess.
We have a bit less than 10 minutes.
Less than 10 minutes?
Yeah.
That's right. I've only got a few left anyway. So yeah, I guess that's
Okay, hold on.
Sense,
remember
right?
that
So like
we've got, what did you say, less than 10 minutes? So we're at the 39-minute mark now, or sorry, we're at the 34-minute mark. And he's done in 5 minutes.
It's some changes, but it's not
10 minutes.
Sweeping changes.
No, of course, yeah. I think it's really been educational having Classic to lean back on, where we were like rooted in this no changes philosophy. Even though we feel like maybe that went just a little too far, it was good to have that as an anchor to kind of keep us grounded and not feeling like we were redesigning a whole new game. We really want it to be the authentic thing that captures the feeling of playing in that era. And we really feel like we got it with Classic, and just a slight adjustment to make a few more targeted changes to kind of make it feel like it fits right and cleans up some of the lingering issues.
Yeah, so with was it patch 1.13.7? I think is the one on the PTR at the moment, the one with spell batching changes.
It is on PTR at the moment.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, that's the one. So with the spell batching changes, like obviously that is some changes, right? Obviously, and a lot of people are very happy about it. I've seen, across the board, it seems pretty well received. So I guess obviously you're making changes to Burning Crusade. Would you consider changes to Classic in the future to make it a better experience for players, or like
potentially
some bits?
Like you mentioned, like spell batching is one of the kinds of things that we might consider. We've also talked about things like
World
is
buffs.
it appropriate to leave Diamond Flask how it is? And this is another one that we've talked about a lot. Obviously, that was brought up very early on, and we decided to leave it alone for Classic. And that one, continues to come up. There's occasionally, discussions about like what really is appropriate, and we definitely want the Classic era servers to feel supported.
Yep.
We don't want to be radical here because, again, like people are there because that was the experience they wanted. So we want to make sure that if we do make changes, it feels like something that we will get an overwhelmingly positive response from. If they're really kind of on the fence, then we get worried about them because we don't want to let that community down and make them feel like it's not what they were asking for.
I think what we've heard from the community even from the onset is that some of the difficulty of Classic is what is contributing to making the community stronger.
Mm-hmm.
There is no easy way for me to find a group to jump in and do a dungeon or a raid with. I have to spend some time in chat and listen and interact with people and that expending effort means that I have a stronger investment in the outcome. And it does take more time, so that's why I think we actually have two separate communities now between Modern WoW and Classic, so that we can serve that aspect and the tastes of those two communities.
Yeah.
We have time for one more question.
One more question. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let me have a quick look. So, all right, we'll go with this.
Time's up.
So, during Classic's development, obviously you guys came out originally with the phase system, and you had a long list of phases and whatnot. And now now you guys have announced a new list of phases for Burning Crusade. I've seen some feedback on Twitter. I'm sure you guys have as well on various bits and pieces. Is that something that is potentially, could be adjusted, from community feedback from beta?
Absolutely.
The thing is, we did
So
this
phases could be adjusted. That's
so
good.
it's not like we have to wait for something to be built before we can roll it out.
Right.
So we do have, within reason, we do have some ability to pull things forward or push things back depending on the readiness of the community.
Yeah, and so I think one of the things that we kind of caught ourselves after we made the announcement was, oh man, maybe we actually don't want Arena Season delayed. We probably want Arena Season 1 coming out with Karazhan. So that's one of the changes that we're already planning to make, even after announcing it yesterday, is we'll probably change the Arena Season so that it matches more with the appropriate gear level that came out with it. So probably Arena Season 1 alongside Karazhan instead of what we initially announced, and probably skipping an Arena Season change when Zulaman comes out.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That's actually, that answered two of my questions on that one, so amazing.
Oh, awesome. Great. Glad we got you a 2-for-1 on the last question.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate the time.
Awesome.
And,
Thanks so much.
Really, really cool. So have a fantastic evening or afternoon, I guess it is for you guys. So yeah.
Yeah, indeed. You too.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, so that's MrGM's interview that he had today. It was...
Yo.
Whoops.
Thank you very much, guys. Yeah. Absolute trash. Lovely. All right. Thank you very much, guys. I'll see you later. I'm gonna upload that to YouTube. You can check it out. And yeah, thanks for being so lovely.
He is not uploaded it yet, so obviously we had to watch the VOD. I will not be uploading my reaction to this until he's uploaded his video. So let's be clear on that. Just my, I guess, end thoughts about the interview. I thought the interview was very good. It actually asked some questions that people have been like, what's going to happen? Is there going to be fresh servers? Like, I'm glad that he asked way better questions than the Q&A. Like the Q&A that we watched earlier today was basically a complete waste of time. I don't know how else to put it. It was basically a waste of time. I recorded the Q&A, and I realized that in recording this, I deleted the recording of the Q&A, and I don't even care because it was basically us sitting here going, this is a big waste of time. So I'm glad that MrGM was able to do his interview here. He didn't get all the questions asked. He made mention of that. He was kind of rushed at the end, which is unfortunate because he was asking really good questions. I would still like to know about bots. I don't know that he was told not to ask about bots, or if for some reason he just decided not to. But bots are the one thing that I still have questions about. What are they going to do to combat bots? I don't know whether or not he was told he can't ask about bots or if he just decided not to. But I do know that he knew people wanted to know about that shit. So otherwise, it was an extremely good Q&A. I'm glad that he was the one that did it because he asked questions that we all wanted to know. So anyways, I'm going to stop the recording there for YouTube. If you want, you can always follow me on Twitch. I'll have all the links below, including a link to this video as well, which by the time I post my video, MrGM should have posted his video on YouTube. So